This is David Cuerpo. He is the Public Information Officer for Seattle Fire, and we are at Fire Station 25 here on Capitol Hill talking about fireworks. And I want to start, David, with the rules because, as I understand it, here in Seattle and King County, fireworks are a big no-no.
That's correct. Fireworks in Seattle and incorporated King County are completely banned for personal use. If you have an event going on, you do have to apply for a permit. Usually that takes weeks, if not months in advance. We do encourage people to look at some of the public displays that are free around the county. Here in Seattle, we have Seed Fair at South Lake Union and also at Gasworks Park. You'll see the fireworks demonstration around 10 p.m. on July 4th. Right now, it's incredibly warm and dry, which is creating the worst conditions for brush fires and wildfires throughout the entire state. So we are definitely on high alert for any potential fires, especially if they're caused by fireworks or even discarded smoking materials or campground fires. So we highly discourage the use of fireworks at this time.
Now, even though it's illegal and even though it's strongly discouraged, how much of it do you still see going on here within the city?
I spoke with Harborview Medical Center at their burn unit to see how many people they've treated in the last year for fireworks-related injuries. That's 67 in the region. That's way too many. Many of those injuries may involve blown off hands or fingers or hearing or face damage. All of that could have been prevented by simply not lighting off the firework.
Yeah, and you touched on it. I mean, tell us a little more about because the medics are the ones that have to go, get these people. What kinds of stuff do we see? How bad does it get?
Yes, throughout the region, I'll specifically speak about Seattle, is our firefighters are EMTs. And so 75% of the calls we go on are medical. And leading up to 4th of July, when people light off fireworks illegally, causing injuries or causing fires, that just makes our days busier. We wish we were a little calmer, especially since we're in these really dry, flammable conditions.
Absolutely. Now, we talked about injuries. I'm assuming 4th of July and the time around that, we get a lot of structure fire calls too that are fireworks related.
Yes, back in 2020, there was a firework that landed in dry brush in front of an apartment building in West Seattle. That fire extended to all 4 floors of the apartment structure, displacing everyone in that building, causing over $100,000 in damage. And that was simply by one small firework that was still hot when it landed into the dry brush. And so those are the significant types of fires that we normally see. We hope with the ban, people respect it, go to a free display, and be in safety.
Yeah, but it still happens, and I know this might be out of your purview, and that's fine. But when somebody gets caught using fireworks illegally, what role does the fire department play? I mean, is there any sort of fire marshal enforcement or anything like that?
So with permitting for public events, that goes through the fire marshals or fire prevention division office in the Seattle Fire Department. But when someone is actively using for the personal use, that becomes a law enforcement issue with Seattle Police. We strongly discourage people reporting active use of fireworks unless it leads to an injury or to a significant fire. So there is a non-emergency number for the Seattle Police Department that is run by the CSCC, which is their new dispatch center, that will handle those calls and will handle them based on priority.
So you're discouraging people if they see somebody using illegal fireworks personally, you're discouraging them from calling 911.
The primary reason is because we get so many calls for fireworks-related injuries and actual fires. It clogs up our fire alarm center and our dispatchers from being able to reach those calls in a timely manner. Remember, every second counts when it comes to responding to a fire and putting it out, or responding to a serious life-threatening injury to save their life. So there is a non-emergency number that I can provide. Sorry, let me get my phone out to grab that note.
No problem.
Didn't put it to memory just yet, but that telephone number is area code 206-625-5011, and that is a 24/7 line that is monitored by the CSCC, which is the new dispatch center for the city of Seattle.
Excellent. David, any other messages for folks as we head into the 4th of July weekend?
As I mentioned, it's incredibly dry. I know a lot of families over the weekend are going to be out enjoying the warm weather, grilling, make sure that you have the grill a safe distance away from your home and that you monitor it actively, making sure children and pets are away. Those are some of the most common types of injuries or burn-related injuries that we've responded to in regards to unkept grills or unmonitored grills.
So I'm assuming then means you get quite a few barbecue fires too.
Correct. Yeah, unfortunately. And the key thing also is once you're done with the grill, let the coals stay in the grill. If you want to extinguish it even faster, pour a bunch of water on it, but do not put it into a plastic bag or plastic container. In fact, we've already responded to fires because of that nature. They thought the coals were cool enough, put it into a plastic trash can, it melted, caught on fire, and caught the home on fire. So that's already happened multiple times in the past month. Please again, keep your grills at least 10 feet away from anything that's flammable. That includes your home, your garage, trees, and whatnot. And as a safety precaution as well, if you have tall, dry grass in your backyard, go ahead and mow it ahead of time just to prevent that from being a fire hazard too.
I think that's good advice, especially in terms of the hot coals, because I can tell you from personal experience, I was with a friend. We spotted, the flickering orange on the wall of a neighbor's house. They had put coals in a plastic trash can right up against the house, and if we hadn't seen it right away, that whole house would have gone up. So, excellent advice. David Cuerpo with Seattle Fire. Thanks, David.
Of course.
Now, we just talked to Seattle Fire, where, again, fireworks in Seattle and King County are illegal, and some of the issues that they go through. And now on the phone joining us is Greg Baruso. He is the Deputy State Fire Marshal. That falls under the State Patrol. Greg, thanks for joining us. The first thing I wanted to ask you about is... we're talking about, there are plenty of places in Washington where fireworks are legal. Certain fireworks are legal. Some are still banned. Can you sort of just give me an overview? You don't have to necessarily give me specific areas, but, what we see in areas where these fireworks are legal, like what kind of activity can we expect?
Well, if you're looking for, first of all, we're talking legal fireworks and illegal fireworks.
We're
right?
talking legal fireworks.
So, right. So legal fireworks, again, just like you said, King County, they're banned. Every jurisdiction has their capacity to be able to ban or not ban, or they can also limit. They can restrict what they want to. Case in point, some counties might do some aerial type of things. Other counties might also, jurisdictions might just maybe do ground fireworks, like those ground balloons that you see. But some of those aerial things that you buy, the safe and sane, the legal ones that shoot in the air, sometimes those local jurisdictions actually restrict and ban those. So it depends on where you are, and exactly the biggest thing for us is to check with your local jurisdiction to see what is banned, what's not.
Okay, so what is the state fire marshal's role when it comes to legal fireworks across Washington?
Our role is to certify the retail folks that sell it, and also certify the pyrotechnic folks that do your shows for you. That's our role. That's what we do. When it comes to inspections for the stands and certifications for those, like a permit for a stand, that goes again to a local jurisdiction. They have a lot of power. They do call us once in a while about different things and ask us about where they can place things. The statute's pretty clear, but it also it depends on their jurisdictions. They also go by national rules, like the National Fire Protection Agency Association style standards. So they go by that. They go by a lot of other rules. But again, the local jurisdictions are the ones that can either ban or not ban, or they restrict, and they're the ones that actually make them legal and not legal in their jurisdiction. And we're talking about, again, for legal fireworks.
So, does the state fire marshal's office have any role when it comes to illegal fireworks?
The only statute we have is that illegal fireworks are banned. And again, we do have our old folks, our WSP, or the Washington Patrol folks, Bomb Squad folks, here's what the time you sell it, the location, not the location, but here's the duration of when they're sold. You know that he started on the 28th, was yesterday, I believe. Then they go to July 5th. And there's also, if you look in there, there are also discharge times. And that's what we control.
Okay, well, since you brought that up, Greg, what are the allowed discharge times?
Let me look at it because I'm on the phone, of course. I also got a helicopter go by there, right? Hold on.
No worries.
Your discharge times are from 12 p.m. Started yesterday, and discharge times were 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. Goes all the way until July 5th, and the discharge times again is 9 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Okay, and that includes those times include July 4th?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Let me look at it. I can look at it real quick again.
Well, I just asked Greg because I want to remind my neighbors when they're blowing them off at 1 a.m. That they're supposed to stop. I want to be that guy. It tells them they can't keep blowing them off at midnight.
Worth a stop. Right, and you call your local law enforcement. We know, Rand, that they're busy, and they also have to get the folks have to be caught blowing them up. That I found out also, and so, but you can call them, and they can at least have a talk with your neighbors.
Okay, so Greg, let's shift to fireworks safety because, I mean, again, there are plenty of areas that, fireworks of different types are legal here in Washington State. In terms of the discharge part of it, what are the recommendations from the State Fire Marshal's Office?
Our recommendation is really be safe with it. Make sure that you buy from a retail licensed, permitted stand, right? So we're talking legal again. Make sure you wet down the area if you have to. Please keep track of your children, your pets. Put your pets away, so that because we all know what happens during July 4th for pets. But for safety-wise, it's always great to have a hose out. It's great to have a bucket of water out. Be supervised if children out there. Make sure that they don't get hurt or injured. Or the biggest injuries are for children, fireworks sometimes. I give you an example of sparklers. When I do this kind of thing, we're talking about sparklers. Sparklers are actually burned at 1,300 degrees. Now, I always equate this when I talk to children. I say, what's the temperature of boiling water, right? Water boils at 212. So a sparkler burns at 1,300. So you can imagine what type of burn you're going to get. So when it comes to being safe, we got to make sure that you're always under supervision for children when you light those things off. Again, have a hose. Make sure your area is clear. Make sure it's not. Make sure it's an area that it's not going to burn. Really, I'm standing out here right now in the area where there's a lot of dry grass. It's a common sense thing. You don't want to put fireworks out there. So just really be safe. Watch your children. Have some water ready, and just like I said, enjoy. But please be safe.
So am I right when you're talking about the area where you're going to set off your fireworks? We should probably also consider that it should be flat as well, right?
Yes, make sure it's flat. Yep, exactly right. Thank you. Make sure it's flat. But when I did it, I used to wet things down too, even though it was green. But that's why again have a hose ready. Be ready for that type of thing. And everything's got to be flat because even your legal and your safe and sane fireworks, like those Piccolo Petes and things like that, they used to call them the whistlers, and the flower blooms, that's the ground ones. You know that if they go on a hill, they're going to roll towards you. And so again, for me too, also make sure you're not downwind but upwind, and just keep an eye on things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking to a guy, I'm sure, wrecked part of his hearing with those Whistling Petes when he was a kid. So, I'm definitely familiar with those. Hearing protection might not be a bad idea either. And of course, you don't want to hold them while you're lighting them. That's part of the reason we want a flat area, right?
Hold them. That's why right, and that's what we talk about children. I was talking about sparklers. We all know that children love to run around, right, with them in their hand. So you have to really be careful, and then you have the folks, like you said, they will try to hold something in their hand and not set it down. That's where a lot of injuries and a lot of burns come from.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned a couple of times now the hose and the bucket. And the bucket is a key component, but you're the expert, so I want to hear it from you in terms of what you want to do once you have set off a firework. I mean, in terms of making sure that it is safe to dispose of at that point.
Right. So what you want to do is you want to let it sit there for about 10 to 15 minutes, right? Not pick it up because it could be hot. And then once you do that, you stick it in the bucket of water, and that's another 10 minutes or so before you do anything with it. And that's the biggest thing. You got to make sure they cool off, pick them up, put them in the bucket, let them sit for at least, I used to do it for like a whole half a night or whatever it was, and I just let them soak, and then empty it from there. Any of the unused fireworks, right, you need to put those away. Now, if you're really concerned about unused fireworks, you can always contact someone to see if they would like to grab them for a show or something like that, but a lot of folks we all know keep them for next year, and that, I'm not sure about, right?
Well, and that brings up a good point, because I've done that. I mean, it's one thing when they're brand new out of the box. But let's say, because I'm one that will go to the reservation. I like to go to Boom City. You buy them right there. You set them off right there. They're fresh, for lack of a better term. After sitting for a year, what kind of problems are we looking at here?
I just haven't seen, because in talking to our bomb squad folks, they get inert after a while, right? And that's the biggest thing with them, and they're not safe. So I'd say, I haven't seen really anything on when to get rid of them. I just know from our office is how to transport them and how to take care of them, the unused ones. So I'd have to talk to, and I'm sorry, I'd have to talk to bomb squad folks again to see what the recommendation is for unused, but that's what I know and the rules are. You can either store them for a little bit, but it's also really nice to see if someone else can use them, like someone is going to do a wedding or things like that they may want them for, right? And you can ask around, and that's all that I've seen done in the past.
Well, and, obviously...
There's nothing from the state marshal's office that says that, what to do, how to take care of those fireworks, just safety rules on them.
Yeah, and obviously, getting rid of them, of course, makes them someone else's problem, and you don't have explosives and gunpowder sitting in your closet. So, there is an advantage. You're right about that. I had to say that, of getting rid of them.
Yeah, you can call your local jurisdiction, your PD too, and if you're really concerned about that, I've seen that folks do that before, and I've said that and told folks to do that. Go to the local sheriff's department or PD, and they come pick them up and dispose of them.
Good to know. Now, what's the fire marshal's office recommendation if there is some sort of an accident, like people are letting off fireworks and a fire gets started? What do you recommend?
First thing to do is call 911. Get everyone out of the area. Please don't try to put it out. That's the biggest mistake. If you can, yes, but you have to recognize that it's going to get away from you, especially using grass. The very first thing you do is call 911 and get everyone out of the area, and just make sure everyone's safe. And then if it's a neighborhood or so, please warn your neighbors. Go around and say, hey, you know what? I got something going on over here, and that's the best thing to do. Just evacuate people out of the way, get them out of the harm's way, out of that area. And I can't stress this enough. 911, please.
Okay, Greg. Any other advice or things that I didn't think of that you want to put out there ahead of the 4th?
No, I just want to say, please, everyone, check with your local jurisdiction to see what fireworks are legal and illegal, right? What times again? Because the times that we have on our site, and I told you about, order discharge times by law. But again, any local jurisdiction will either use that or they may extend it to a little bit. I doubt if they do, but it's always great to check with them. And just please, if you're going to use anything, please be safe. That's all we're asking.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice too, Greg. Make sure you know the local rules before you start setting them off. And just a reminder, because I've talked recently with my friends at the Department of Natural Resources, I'll have more on that soon. You know, even if it's legal, if you're, you know, in like a forested area or whatever, you know, be careful with what you're doing. You don't want to be willy-nilly with fireworks, no matter what happens. All right, Greg Baruso, Deputy State Fire Marshal. Really appreciate that, Greg.